Looks like we're live, Zach. How are you, man?
As I sit here waiting, I think about a time when I was a juvenile, and I'm gonna tell you a story. It's not that story; it's a different story. I wouldn't tell that story to the public, but I will tell you this story instead. I recall being at a red light, and like when you get to a red light and the light turns green and someone doesn't
Yep.
immediately go, you honk the horn at them. I think that happens a lot more now because the cellular device wasn't there growing up. We might have had pagers, also known as beepers. So at that time, people actually, this didn't happen, I don't think, on the regular as it does now. There was a game that my friends and I used to play where we would see how long we could wait. So it's red, turns green, we wait, see how many beeps we can get, and then when it turns yellow, we go through the light. Yes, that was inappropriate of me. I should have never done that. Please forgive me for my irresponsibility.
You're the guy. Someone listening right now is like, you're the guy.
Oh man! Every once in a while, I think about doing that again. I'm like, that would be a lot of fun to do, just to see how many people get angry.
Just interesting side fact to that is, I don't know, it was a few updates ago, but Tesla, it knows traffic lights and it will give you an audible beep, bing when the light turns green to say, hey, it's time to go.
There you go.
Yeah, problem solved.
See, thank you. 25 years in the making, we finally figured it out.
Yeah.
Technology,
innovation.
So, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, it's a nice time for us to talk about Innovate Hampton Roads, right? A lot of people are probably wondering what in the world that's all about. We were an event last Thursday. It was good to get the crew together to talk about. Well, one, I thought it was a good event. It's always fun to get everyone together. It was fun to meet at the Slover.
Haven't been there in a while.
Slover Library in downtown Norfolk.
That's 8 years old now.
Is that what it is?
I think it was 15, right? So now we're in 23. So yeah, it's got to be.
Yeah, that's a great place. So that was our quarterly meetup that we do, and it was great. We got to hear from A.K. Schultz, CEO and co-founder of SVT Robotics, which was great. I got a lot of compliments on his talk. That a lot of people trying to be exothermic.
I couldn't remember what it was, but I liked that shirt. I was like, I want one of those.
Yeah, that's their thing. They typically when they do like expos and trade shows or whatever, where they got the shirt, and for a while I know that they were wearing like the flame Vans to go with it as well. But
I think he was wearing that shirt when we interviewed him, however many moons ago.
Yeah,
and if I recall, that was the first time he had met a lot of his teammates, and he mentioned that the other day, how like they grew so much during COVID, and then a year or two later he actually met the people outside of a computer screen, which is always a treat for many people. So
yeah, but yeah, it was a fun event. We capped everything off by announcing the merger between StartWheel and the Hampton Roads Innovation Collaborative to create Innovate Hampton Roads. So you always have great thoughts, great ideas, Zach, and we could talk a little bit about what Innovate Hampton Roads is, why we joined, and what that means for the future. Well, I think it's exciting.
So let's leave and go further back.
Yeah,
we don't have any of this planned, by the way. So there's no like sheet of like, oh, here's the rundown, what we're going to do. Let's just like, how would you define StartWheel? And then how would you define Hampton Roads Innovation Collaborative? Because I don't know that I knew that HRIC did some events and things like that. I've been to some of them, and the Tech Council, because they were the Tech Council, maybe a reincarnation of that. Where it seemed like it was more of mature business stuff. And I mean, at least that's what I thought I was hearing. So I'm interested in kind of like what your thoughts on what StartWheel was, what HRIC is, and then we'll piggy that into what Innovate Hampton Roads is.
Yeah, first and foremost, StartWheel is it is a 501c3. focused on education, educating entrepreneurs, giving them the insight on how to start a business so they can just reducing the headwinds, reducing the friction, and giving them the clearest path to move forward. And it's interesting because when we first started, as you know, Zach, there was a lot. We worked with many early stage startups, and this is going back 10, 12 years ago. And over the course of those 10 to 12 years, some businesses didn't make it, but other businesses, they've succeeded. They've grown up. And as those businesses have grown up, then they naturally move into what would be the tech council or HRIC swim lane, if you will. And we weren't necessarily integrating. It was just from that standpoint, it was like a sign of maturity that we're starting to see these companies find the product market fit. They're able to move forward, but we need to
problem market fit,
which
is what AK talked about. Yeah.
So to me, I view it as a sign of maturity as we continue to move forward. But the whole idea is that we've got to continue to increase the amount of communication, collaboration that takes place so that the region can continue to grow.
Well, and whether or not you believe this or not, from the outside, it can be difficult for people to even decipher between those two organizations, even if they're completely different things, just because they're getting a newsletter, the words that they associate are similar. And so they're like, well, they're competitors, so they're the same thing. So I'm going to pick one or the other, or something like that. And so doing things together, when you both are trying to basically do the same thing, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I think more organizations should think about, combining forces, think about the greater good of, the area, and think about that, because I often look at stuff and I'm like, okay, like, you're basically doing the same thing as so-and-so. Why not try to like help them instead of this? And I'm sure a lot of areas do the same thing, where there's a lot of similar organizations that are, making a difference, but would be making a bigger, better, phenomenal difference if they, stack the cards correctly. And so I'm hopeful that this isn't a good improvement and a good win for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing that stands out to me that it concerns me and is when we have a conversation with AK, and AK has never met Tom Walker from Drone Up. When you have arguably the two biggest companies making the most headlines that are going to be the next generation of companies for our region, and if they've not talked to one another, that concerns me, because that tells me that we're not going down the right path. We should all be talking to each other. Hey, what challenges are you facing? How did you overcome those challenges? Because we're all trying to hit the next milestones, accomplish the next set of goals, whatever that might be. And if we're not talking to each other and we're only 10, 15 minutes down the road from one another, that's concerning to me. And that's something that needs to be solved.
Is that something you can solve though? So like, me, devil's advocate, it's like, I get what you're saying.
No,
but
I'm with you.
Do you think Twitter,
do
you think that whoever's running Twitter is talking to the guy whoever's running Facebook? Like, obviously those are different companies and sizes and things like that, but like,
well, I think that I only can provide opportunity for those people that want to make it happen. Now, I know AK, he would like to see something like that happen. So all we can do is set up an event, and if the people that want to be part of it can attend, and those that don't, that's the best we can do.
I'm gonna butcher the line, but it's something like you're trying to cause collisions or like chaotic collisions, and so like you invite the right people. And that's like when I was doing Start Norfolk, or even like in any of my events, it was like, look, anyone can come, but for some reason the people that I invite seem to like gel well together, probably because I'm not, inviting donkeys to things. No, I don't really do events anymore. But when I was, people were like, oh, I really like the people that are there. And it's like,
Yeah.
if you associate and put the right people in the room, great things can and usually do happen. And so even if it's just, hey, let's all have lunch, and it's you, Tom, and AK, getting together somewhere in between your offices, that could be a thing.
Yeah, we just got to start. And if it just is with 3 to 5 people, it's a start, and then we continue to grow. But that's just,
and then Alan says this: should we start CEO founder only breakfast? Yeah, kind of that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
it's you want the right people in the right room, and you're not trying to not have certain people there, but it's sometimes people show up to those events, very nice, but it's like, hey, you're not really the person that we want at this event. You're your white collar service provider. Obviously, you are important in this thing, but you're not exactly who I was looking to have attend this event. So,
yeah. So, one thing that, and I would
11:11.
love your take on that would
11:11.
be 11:11. I have no idea what is the definition of evolution. And I heard this in a book. Ooh. And they define evolution as progress without a plan. And I feel that that's our region. We just evolve. We have it. We're like accidentally good. So I think about this region. If we would really put a plan behind it, it would be amazing to see what we would be able to accomplish. So,
see, I get why you say that. I find it hard in a situation where the region wants this thing to happen, yet the region isn't the one signing those checks. The region isn't the one building those businesses, right? And so, create a landscape that allows a lot of this success to be there, sure. But it's I remember when Marcus Jones, when I was doing Hatch, she was just like, look, you do your thing, I'm going to get out of the way. And I feel like it's he created a condition, he made it available, and it was just but I'm going to get out of the way because I don't know how to do this. And so I think sometimes our region wants to actually create things, and it's
well, but I guess so. Who do you find as the region?
Well, I guess I'm saying these organizations. A lot of these organizations are trying to, better the area. And it could be every single organization in there across the board, right?
But the thing about it is, though, is I think that a lot of these organizations, and I'm not going to name any names, but a lot of these organizations say that they want certain things, but they don't roll up their sleeves and do the work. They want the outcome without the work. Whereas I think that that's where Innovate Hampton Roads, we're going to do the work. So we have the founders, we have the early stage businesses, we know the people that are involved, and they are the ones that want to see this happen. So from that standpoint, I'm really excited, optimistic.
I don't know.
And I think that's what
I was going to define evolution, but I don't really know how to define it. I guess I would. I read this in a book too once. I'll get to that point in a second. But evolution is just I would think of it from being born, to crawling, to walking, to whatever. Each step of that is a business, and I think you could probably put different layers of that if we're putting it from a business perspective. But I mean, the evolution of life is just if you're just constantly learning, you're constantly growing, you're constantly hopefully trying to improve. What's interesting is that are you smarter than a fourth grader or whatever it is? No, I'm not, because I couldn't figure this out. But revolution is just an R in front of evolution. And so if you think of that thought, evolution, but then within the mindset of put the R in front, where it's constantly cycling that thing, I think those two together is really, really important, where it's okay, you want to have this evolution of success or growth, but then have that in a cycle where it's constantly happening. And I always thought that one of the missing pieces in this region was just the revolution aspect. You have a lot of evolution, right? You have a lot of growth in different businesses, no matter the sector, right? But then when that person gets to that success spot, do they revolve back in and try and help people back out, you know, at levels 1, 2 through however many there are? And I always thought there was a lot of that missing in this region, and that's why people would try to go elsewhere, because they couldn't get that where other places did have that revolution aspect of the evolution. What a tongue twister that is.
Yeah.
What do you, I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's,
or what are your thoughts on it? You don't have to agree with it. I mean,
no, I mean, there's a lot of work to do, and I think that there is just, we could present the opportunity, and that was one of the things that made your events different, unique, and worked out really well, was you had a great mix of early stage founders that were there, as well as other more mature businesses, that they would attend your events because it was a great recruiting opportunity for them, or it was a great way for them to learn about new and upcoming technologies on how they need to evolve, or they need to disrupt their own business. So from that aspect, your events were really great.
Well, thank you. And thank you for all those who attended over the years.
Yeah.
Have we talked all about Innovate Hampton Roads that you want to? Because I am interested. I mean, have we gotten every piece of that you want to make sure that we get out? And I'm interested in that same vein as like how you came up with the name, and why didn't you just stick with StartWheel? Why didn't you stick with HRIC? Why did you completely rebrand? Like, I'm just interested, because you had a 1-word name, which are usually pretty good. Now you have a 3-word name. I mean, I'm just interested in the whole totality of how you decided to brand, how you guys came up with the brand Innovate Hampton Roads.
Well, it's funny. I mean, so like hindsight, a lot of the people, as it turns out, not everybody was happy with the term StartWheel. And honestly, I wasn't a huge fan of StartWheel earlier as well. I mean, I was not the founder of StartWheel, and it's one of those deals that you just ran with it. And a lot of people, like, they did not know what is StartWheel? What is StartWheel? On the flip side, with HRIC, there was also a lot of confusion, and nobody liked HRIC. It was just the Hampton Roads Innovation Collaborative. Was it the Tech Council? There was a lot of confusion there. So that was just an opportunity for us to eliminate a lot of confusion, bring everyone together, and then just start fresh. Everybody liked the innovation aspect of everything. And one of the board members on HRIC was like, Innovate Hampton Roads. Everybody just kind of grabbed onto it, and that's the path that we're going forward.
Any pushback on the moniker aspect? Any pushback on having that name in there?
No. I think that it was pretty well received, and yeah, it's. I think that
I don't have an answer either way. I'm just genuinely interested in like how how an organization changes their name, figures out this is what we're going to go with. It's an interesting process.
Everything just got the pieces just kind of fell into place, and I've never. I mean, gosh, I've expressed to you several times, like, the whole naming of any organization is so painful that I just kind of default to whatever the group decides, because it is just super, super, super painful.
I have a client that's going through a rebrand, and like everything, it's completely different name. And so it's then like, here are all these things that are also about to happen with this company. It's like, okay, like let's word vomit out words that are associated with this so that everything is in line. And so it's like, because I remember when we started Hatch originally, it was always just Hatch. Actually, I think it was originally the Start Norfolk Summer Accelerator. And then Drew from Grow was like, you should call it Hatch. So we took that name. And then somehow in there, I think hatch.com wasn't available. So I just got the domain Hatch Norfolk. Then everyone called it Hatch Norfolk. And I'm like, but you know how people are with names in this region about things like that. And I never wanted it to be associated with a name in general, because I always saw it bigger than that. And then so like 4 or 5 years into it, it was like, okay, let's get this new domain. And we were coming up with like craziest things like Hatch Worldwide, all this craziness. And then someone just said, why don't you just start with Hatch, as in having the word Hatch first? But they said, why don't you start with Hatch? And I was like, oh, it's interesting. Went online, startwithhatch.com was available. So bought that and went with it. And so that was interesting, kind of like how Innovate Hampton Roads happened. It was just, someone just said, what about this? And then it was like, oh, we're not even thinking about that, but here we are.
Yeah. And so we have, and we've talked about this on the show several times. So all of the social media handles,
were they available?
We went with Innovate 757 just to shorten everything up, because Innovate Hampton Roads is just really, really long. So on the socials, everybody, you'll notice that we've converted everything over to Innovate 757, which is shorter, easier to remember.
So why didn't you just call it Innovate 757?
Well, the whole argument, again, it's just, dude, it's just not my, it's not my thing, man. But it works. Just because I don't want to get in the middle of the argument of the whole 757.
There's bigger fish.
There's a new area code. And
there's bigger fish to fry. Is that the same?
Exactly. I want to. I joke, and Alan, who is a great supporter and makes everything happen. I am less about the sizzle and more about the steak. And this is like let's make some things happen. Let's get it done. So,
well, how do you like your steak?
Medium.
Medium. Oh
yeah.
Come on. At least it's not well done. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So what should people anticipate with Innovate Hampton Roads over at least the next year, let's say?
Yeah, I think that right now, it's making sure that everyone understands that they're invited to the table. I really want to see. I want to bring the business community together. And that's really, really important. I get that everybody is busy. They're trying to survive, hit their marks, hit their goals, whatever the case is. But we got to bring everyone together, get the conversation, start a conversation too. And I guess looking back at some of the previous shows, for those that were listening or paying attention, I had mentioned the whole BHAG thing several times about what are those big, hairy, audacious goals that as a region that we need to come up with. And I would love to, what are some things that we really, really need to work towards? And I don't want there to be a fear of failure. I want us to go after something big, because unless we're going after a common goal, I don't think that there's no easier way to unite a community or a group of people together than if we're all working to accomplish a single goal.
So have you decided what your BHAG is?
No, I mean, I'm still listening to taking input to find out, what that could be. What do you think? You have any thoughts on?
I mean, I think, not to be selfish, to toot my own horn, I think I create a lot of like first of its kind things. So like I think continuing to do things like that, I think is very unique, because I mean, a lot of cities used to call me and be like, oh, that's interesting, how did you do this? And so like I don't know, like things like that I think are important, continuing to move the needle. Like I don't know, like I can't remember if I just said this to you or on the show, but like, I mean, to me a BHAG is keeping something in the water here.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
a lot of things. I mean, there's so many challenges and so many things that we need to address. And the thing about it is that everyone
I know
has
what my BHAG is. To fix the freaking potholes in this area and just to make it flat.
But the thing about it is, though, man, once you've been to places like Michigan, you don't even know what potholes are until I praise Virginia for
No, I
their.
disagree.
Oh,
No,
dude,
no.
go to Michigan, and you'll have a completely different outlook on life. But no, I think that there's really there's some really cool things that are happening that need to be talked about. So like the whole ODU and EVMS merger, that's huge. I mean, like that is going to totally change the outlook and what the possibilities could be when you have the caliber of a EVMS merged with an ODU.
When
I mean,
did this
that's
happen?
that there's been talks of this going on for a couple of years now, and like now it's to the point where it's like it's going to happen, and there's a deadline for like the two organizations to actually figure out like eliminate some of the duplication of effort, so that who's in charge of this, that like so that's
I
really
had no
really
idea.
big. Yeah, that's
That's
that.
cool.
Well, and that's part of the problem. So like we've got to showcase what the different strengths are. So I mean, it's like a lot of times what at Duke, a lot of people go to Duke for like medicals type things. Is that true, Zach? But now we have, because like there's different stats. I want to say that it's like the number of doctors per thousand residents. That's a metric that the medical community uses, and we need to be able to address those types of things, and we're able to do that with a EVMS ODU merger. So now we're able to build some density. We're able to build.
What was the stat?
They measure how many doctors per thousands of people in an MSA. And for a long time, we were way under that benchmark, and that was really the premise of why EVMS was created back in the day to begin with. But yeah, like another thing is that needs to be addressed is affordable housing. I mean, it's just like in this area, one of the things that I learned through Civic, which is a great program, was the number one reason for homelessness in our area is affordable housing. And like, if you look at what the affordable housing rate is, and for a 1-bedroom apartment, and the availability, there literally is zero. And I want to say when when that query was run for a 2-bedroom, there was like 2 apartments in the entire area. So like access to housing, access to affordable housing, it's a significant challenge, and that's something that. And then you ask why? Why is that the case?
I mean, it's got to be the military stipend.
Well, no, it's the zoning restrictions, that the inability to develop the land and to build new homes. I mean, it's a supply and demand thing, and as long as there's no supply, and to your point, we have the military that continues to, as the bases grow and new squadrons come in, then the demand continues to increase, and so obviously the prices then go increase as well. And so like those are certain things that need to happen. And I'm not necessarily saying that Innovate Hampton Roads is going to be the people to address and make that change, but somebody needs to be aware, and different organizations, they need to work together so that they can put pressure or just make it known that, hey, this is something that needs to be addressed. And even when you go back to Tom Walker, CEO of Drone Up's talk that he did at our HR BizWheel Quarterly a couple quarters ago, one of the biggest, when I asked the question, how can we help you? And it's just when he comes back and he says that, hey, I'm able to bring people from Austin, from Silicon Valley here, and they want to be developers for Drone Up, but the problem is there's no housing. We can't relocate people here because there's not the housing. That's what we need in this area.
What does that mean? I mean, can you go deeper on that? Like, you see houses for sale all the time. You see apartment complexes going up for rent all the time. Like, what does that mean? Are these companies not paying enough to hit the standard
No,
on
I
that?
don't
Like,
think that
where are you
I
on
mean,
that? Like,
the inventory is just really, really low. And I mean, I don't know region wide as far as where we stand, but the inventory is low. Certainly around my area, around Langley Air Force Base, and around NASA. I mean, it's stunning to see how little inventory there is, and
of renting and buying.
at least for homes for sale.
Okay.
But that's just something that needs to be looked at and needs to be addressed. And but then that typically will lead to, well, gosh, I don't want apartments close to where I live. I mean, like everybody has this like false impression in their head. Yeah.
Not to say that Tom isn't right in that case, because I'm definitely not the one to push back on that. But I mean, it's just like, is that really the reason why someone's not going to come here? Is that like, it just seems like if they really wanted to, they would find a house. If they really wanted to be in this area, if they really wanted to work for Drone Up or any of these other companies, it seems like they would be able to find that out. I mean, I've heard in the past that people are always worried about, okay, if I'm going to relocate and that company goes under, am I going to be able to find another company that I could work for? A lot of people have issues with that. That could be it. I don't know. It just seems like, I agree that how the housing market here is way higher than it should be, but I don't know, that seems like
Well, I mean,
but whatever.
I don't know, man. I mean, I take it for what it is. I see the inventory, but then even when you take into account what interest rates are now, I mean, the buying
Sure.
power that people
Sure.
have, then it's even more constricted. But yeah, that's one aspect, and the other aspect is looking at someone like AK in the sense of how are we developing the next generation of software developers and coders, and AI is going to take care of a lot of that, but that's not the end all be all as AI comes into play more so. But what are we doing to look at and educating and developing our next generation of workforce? I mean, it's a everyone has that same struggle, and we've got to people need to at least start talking, because if maybe to your point, Zach, maybe you are right, and Tom he doesn't know about this avenue or that avenue, and if those two are talking, then all of a sudden his problem is solved, and then life goes on. Or if we get multiple people saying, "Yeah, I have the same problem," so I guess
because when I moved here, we were MSA 42, which is the size compared to every other MSA in the country. And I think we're at like 36, 37. So we've clearly grown, or other areas have shrunk, right? Because now I think we're in the mid 30s. It's just, and you don't necessarily see that, right? It's not like there's a lot more buildings that are taller in the area. They're not, it's not like you have a skyline growing or anything like that, because you really don't. But the growth is there, at least from 42 to 35, something like that. And so I always like to go deeper. That's the type of person I am. I'm like, okay, tell me more. Like, let's really figure if this is really a real challenge, and the growth of these companies is being hitting roadblocks for XYZ, then those are the things that we should be pushing to try to fix. As a community. So
the same holds true with regards to like what we always joke on this show. What is the food of our region kind of thing? Well,
we'll find that out in a couple of weeks when we have Namarama on that. And I'm very interested in asking him that question, because he'll know.
But to that end, I mean, there was a recent a federal grant opportunity that was released, and in order to be competitive, you only can pick one or two industry clusters, if you will, that to be competitive for this particular grant. So what is it? Yeah. What is that one cluster that we're like, as a region, we're going to say, all right, we're going to get behind this. And this is going to be the one thing that this is the one horse that we're going to bet on.
Mhm.
And we don't necessarily, I would be curious what your take would be. I mean,
Logistics.
And, but what
Because of the port.
companies, yeah, but
And I think you can do a lot of, logistics is really, deep data too. So you can build solutions off of that. You can have a test drive.
Do we have companies or software or, like that we can truly disrupt and that's going to change the way logistics? I mean, we're doing it. There's no question about that.
You're using something. Well, I know Splice is trying to do that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's just so it's interesting. We have a lot of work that needs to happen, and then so those are all conversations that need to continue to happen. But with that, a lot of it will come back down to the early
what the founders
stage.
want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would be interested in just like at your Start Peninsulas, what are the ideas that people are pitching? If is there a trend there? My guess is no, right? And so I think it's just like, this is what people want to build. This is what they're going to build. I think it's a very difficult. It's a tough nut to crack when maybe you don't have that thing,
Yeah, and all of that to say, we've been working really, really hard on this business directory
Sure.
that we have on our site, and the whole idea is it's just like we want to have a better understanding of what are the companies that we have in this region, what do they represent, and what is that data telling us? So as we're begging or pleading to founders saying, hey, make sure your company is in our business directory. It
we
really
have 8,000.
is.
How did you get all 8,000?
We have, a lot of it is open data that you can get from federal sources or state sources or what have you. But the big thing is that we need to have a better understanding of what it is that we have in our region, so that then we can double down, or we can place a bet on some of the like we could have an industry cluster. I don't like that word, but I'm just going to use it.
Cluster.
A cluster of businesses that we have no idea that we even have. On the flip side, I think that there could be certain segments that, and I don't know any offhand, but that we're marketing
clusters.
That we don't really have one. It just sounds really good to say, hey, yeah, this is what we're doing.
My guess is we have more of this. So if you recall 8 years ago when I did the first startup address, that was some of the data that I was interested in trying to figure out. Like, hey, cities, give us this data of the businesses, the styles and stuff like that, why they closed, when they opened, how, just the most basic of business information. And, it was not easy to come by. And so if the cities don't know that, it's just like, come on, like, this is important stuff here. So that you can make educated decisions, so that you can go after those 2 federal grants that are giving however many dollars, and you see where you go. I love technology. We use a lot of technology. I don't think people would really associate this area as a technology hub in any kind of way, at least from, a day-to-day use. Yes, from like a NASA and stuff like that, but not from like, a Silicon Valley, Miami, Austin, Denver, Boulder kind of software technology aspect.
Yeah.
There's nothing the matter with that, but I think that the clusters that sometimes we go after are, I would think it's more bio stuff. I would think it's more medical stuff than not. But without the data, I'm just making that assumption off of the companies that I've seen over the last 15 years.
Yeah. It's tough. It's just, you can't make any educated statement without data. So we're trying really, really hard to get that data, so that we can place some bets, if you will. So we'll see. It's going to be a coalition of the willing, and I want as many people to. Everyone's welcome. Everyone has a seat at the table. So it's like let's do this, and that's you got to start. We got to start just when we started the show. You got to start somewhere, and if it's 2 or 3 people that go to a breakfast, then we got to start somewhere.
Well, that's okay. Intimate conversations oftentimes might not be sexy, might not be trendy, but you oftentimes can make some big headwinds, if you will, off those pieces. You can, I'm thinking about just walking into the Mighty Dream Forum under that big tent. You get a bunch of people in that room and they're listening and they're inspired. However, and that's a big thing to kind of promote and see, the however many people went to something in the water 6 months after that, and to see that's something to promote. But the small conversations, behind closed doors are where it all happens, right? And so my favorite commercial of all time, is the Michael Phelps Under Armour commercial, where it says, it's what you do in the dark that puts you in the light, right? It's the things that you do behind closed doors. It's the little conversations. It's what you don't post online. That's important, and that's what makes you become the greatest Olympian of all time, right? And so situations like that, I think, again, not sexy, not cool, but are what put you in the light. And so I like small, intimate situations, and during COVID, we all did.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's I can't focus who's not there. I can't focus on who's not there. I only can focus on who's there. But everyone is invited to be there.
Are you gonna keep doing the quarterly thing?
Yeah.
Keeping that name?
I don't know, man. I mean, everything's so like for me, everything is on the open to discussion. I think
Sorry.
No, I mean, that's a long name too within itself. And that was just one of those things where like, we got to call it something.
Yeah.
So who knows? I mean, but everything's open to discussion. And
what did you do with Silicon Anchor?
It's still around.
Are you just calling that the newsletter, or are you?
That was just, yeah. I mean, that was just something that we called the newsletter, but just to bring, to highlight, hey, the region is bigger than any one organization. And, to me, it's a really easy way. If you go on Twitter and if you just, you search, you do a hashtag search for Silicon Anchor, then, I can look to see everything that's going on. So if there's a news story or something that needs to be shared, it's an easier way to find and promote what's happening in the region.
How do you feel the traditional media in this area has done at promoting the business community? And is that where most people are going to look for stuff? And is that like just in general, where do you?
Yeah,
I'm not trying to go one way or another on this. I'm just like,
yeah. I know that is one of the biggest areas of concern from the business community is the
actual businesses.
Yeah.
In the community. Yeah.
Is the lack of coverage on the business community.
When I started Silicon Anchor News, I mean, that was one of the ideas. It was like, hey, there's a ton of companies out there. You can cover them. It didn't work out. I think it's still, look, when was that? 10 years ago? 12, 13, whatever that was. I still think that can work. And I still think there can be success there. People...
I got into this whole discussion, again, of the region. It's just, there's got to be buy-in, and getting buy-in is extremely difficult.
What do you mean? Buy-in from what?
From all the different organizations to buy in and say, yep, we're going to agree to do this. Just because everybody, rightfully so, has their own missions that objectives
to buy into media coverage.
No, just to buy into anything. So, but that's using Silicon Anchor is that example. It's going to require it would require buy-in from every organization to say, yep, we're going to use this hashtag, or we're going to refer to the region as this, so that we can create that density that is required. The whole adage of nothing gathers a crowd like a crowd, but we can't get the buy-in from the initial people to create the crowd to make a bigger crowd. So that's it's extremely difficult. and everyone talks. I mean, everyone loves this area. We love a good study, and everybody wants to. Let's do a study on what. And it's just like you can have a study, you can have the blueprint, you could have unless everyone buys in to what's going to happen. Yeah, it's going to fall to the wayside. There's
right, and I'm not trying to bash newspapers in this case. I've been in the Pilot and Inside Business multiple times. Very appreciative of them.
Yeah.
I would love them to be doing better than they are. I don't know the economics behind them.
Yeah.
But I mean, all you have to do is look at the size of the papers and the amount of stories that have been released, decreasing over the last 10 years to say, okay, things have changed there. However, I think people are salivating for more.
Yeah.
And are interested in content like that.
I agree.
Or in some form of media, the evolution of that, right? This is it, right? This conversation that we're having is the 100-year ago newspaper article, right? This is that. And so,
well, to that, I like me, Innovate Hampton Roads. Me personally, I'm not trying to be the guy. I'm not trying to build an empire. This is truly for the founders and for the business community. So I think that there's a lot of people that don't
indirectly you just become the guy.
Yeah. And so it's just like, share the content, submit your content to Innovate Hampton Roads for the community. You're not doing it for me and you're not doing it for the organization. You're doing it for the businesses that we're trying to showcase, grow, and support. So, I mean, that's, I fear that there's a lot of people like, man, what if Innovate Hampton Roads becomes bigger than my organization? Well, it's not about that. This is about supporting the business community. And again, it takes the core group of people to make that happen. And that's what we're looking for.
Because they're worried about losing their job, you think?
I think that there's a lot of nonprofits in this region that they're all competing over the same dollars. And if one organization gets larger than the other one, then they're at risk of losing that funding.
You know how those organizations get more funding? By more companies being able to be able to afford funding for those companies. If that's going to be their business model, the way to fix it is to have more companies that can actually throw dollars at stuff like that. I mean, that's 101 stuff right now.
Yeah. But I'm with you.
So Alan said something interesting. Now the largest regional news gathering operation. I wonder if WHRO News has a business focused reporter. My guess is no. I don't know. I mean, Kathy Lewis's show way back when was probably the closest thing to that, and it wasn't just business. But yeah, it's for me, I don't even remember why I closed Silicon Acre News. Probably because I just couldn't make the dollars work at that time. Could you make that work now and start something like that? Get a couple of reporters, do a lot more stories. I think you can throw out a bunch of stories a day. You can follow some companies. I think there is a good way to do it, but there is dollars that have to be associated doing something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm not, honestly, I'm not even sure that the traditional media is really even, dare I say, respected in the same way that it used to be, where I think a more of an independent style of news organization could probably become more popular than your traditional, because then it's, you don't have, just the craziness going on with so many people, maybe disliking or loving the media. And so it's having something that's, for the businesses, by the businesses.
Yeah. One thing that's interesting, kind of a hard right turn, but one thing that's interesting is that, China is famous for having long-term strategy. They don't think in years or decades. They think about in this century kind of thing. I mean, they're just very, very strategic and patient people. But the other thing, one thing that has started evolving within the last year or two is the Middle East. In the Middle East, they understand that oil is going away. Electrification is off to the races. I mean, that train has left the station, and so they now know that they have a very, very small window to get off
Fix
the
it.
dependency of oil funding. So like they are investing a ton of money. They're trying to be the next Silicon Valley, and they are supporting a lot of startups and venture efforts because they know that they have to do something. So it's just like, again, that is just it's a focus area. So it would on a very micro scale. I mean, it's just, we always talk about nothing brings our community together than the threat of one of our bases shutting down. I mean, we have had, just like the Middle East with oil, I mean, we have had the luxury of having the world's largest Navy base,
or ship leaving or something like that.
the oldest Air Force base. We have NASA here. We've had that luxury for a long time. And we're not, if announcement is made that we're going to lose something like that, we're not going to have decades to prepare to recoup that economical impact. So
Well,
it's just
isn't that, James says there a way to generate FOMO? Isn't that the kind of the same piece of it, where it's like, if you aren't scared of this and you're not kind of pushing towards that, realizing that, that dependency, those are all government dollars, by the way, right? And so, I mean, I don't know what percentage of this area is dependent on government dollars. I'm sure it's a large amount.
It's a vast amount, and the monetary velocity that takes place in terms of like the number of times $1 exchanges hand from one person or one business to the next is huge.
Right. And let's be honest, taking a carrier out of this area is probably the smart thing to do. It's probably not the smartest thing to have all of them in one area, diversifying, as we want to diversify the economy, diversifying the base might be a little smart too. But,
Well, the other thing that's really interesting is that what a lot of people don't realize is that, like, we're being evaluated right now in terms of, so again, going back to the housing, what does housing look like? Is that affordable for the military members? Because that's on-base housing, that's all being commercialized now. Or what is the education opportunity? What is the workforce opportunity for people that are retiring or separating? We're being evaluated on all that stuff. So when it comes time to what base do we keep open, like those are all things that they're looking at now, that the time to correct that once a decision has been made
was 10 years before.
Exactly. So it's just like, we've got to focus on this stuff. We have got to innovate. We've got to find new ways. We have to support, or else it's just, we're hurting ourselves in the long run. So
interesting, as I'm looking at this, I started getting into the business community in 2010 is when I think I started doing stuff, roughly 2010. If you look back at 2010 to 2023 now, it's crazy to even think that it's been 13 plus years. Were there things? Yeah, there was like little organizations, like maybe a developer meetup or, a graphic design meetup, an AIGA, stuff like that. There was the Old Tech Council used to meet, and maybe that was it. Maybe your chambers and stuff like that. You still had other organizations like that out there, but those are everywhere, in the country. If you look back and really think about the last 13, 14 years, like it's been a probably a pretty positive trajectory of growth. And I think if you were to say, look at where you were before to look at where you are now, and you reflect on that, I think you could see a lot of improvements over those times. Oftentimes and I think maybe we're doing this too much today, and it's probably because of me, but we're being negative about some of the growth, right? And so yes, we want more, but there has been a strong positive trajectory over the last 14 years, and I think we would be doing ourselves a disservice to not say that. Are we where we want to be? Sure, but I think we could be at the moon and be like, oh, we should be at wherever is past the moon, right? And so I just remember, I feel like I wrote this in like 2013. It was like, hey, over the last 6 months, 2 companies just sold for over billions of dollars. And we're not treating that as a positive thing in this area. I can't remember. I think it's like a Mara Group and Smithfield got sold. I think those are the two companies, something like that. And as a business owner that might have been starting or is in growth mode or is in somewhere in the trajectory of their business, trajectory is the word of the day, wherever they are in their business, if you were to know that within 15, 20 years, you were going to take your little business that you started for however many dollars and turn it into, a juggernaut, and we're able to sell it for billions of dollars, I think you have to look at those as wins. If you look at Little Town Bank that started 20 years ago, that is now acquiring businesses left and right, up and down the East Coast, those are big wins. Are they in sexy industries? Maybe not. But those are things that you could look at and say, this area does have an appetite for success in businesses. Maybe not the cluster that we want, right?
Yeah.
But there's definitely success there. And that's a selling point that I think is often neglected to be talked about, where it's exciting. You got someone like a Ned Lillen X-Tuple sold in the last year. Not many people talk about that. I think I only read it in the StartWheel newsletter, right? And that's it. And maybe it was in somewhere else, but obviously the distribution didn't hit my eyes. And so it's just like, that is something that's in the last 12, 18 months that hasn't been talked about, enough, and what is it, ad nauseum, whatever, it's like, you gotta like kind of put this stuff, push it down people's throats. And there are wins there that we just don't talk about. And I'm a firm believer. Some people hate this idea, but I think you got to go to the top of the mountaintop and scream to the world what you want them to know. Kind of like the Ricola commercials. Ricola, it's, and Bob says it was in the pilot and daily press, but is that enough? These more. We need more of this. We need people talking about it. People were talking about something in the water as an exciting thing. It was all day coverage, like all this stuff. Yes, those are meteoric events, but so are these, right? If we really truly believe that this business community is what we want it to be, or is this thing that we want to see success with, then we need to really get behind that stuff and absolutely push it to the moon, to the extent that you're getting an obnoxious amount of people talking about it. Because if not, look like the casino, right? An obnoxious amount of coverage, positive and negative, but you're getting it, right? The acquisition of some of these businesses, doesn't matter how big they are, right? The acquisition of these businesses, obnoxious amounts of mentions.
Yeah.
That's what we need. And so without it, people aren't going to see it. The trickle effect, just isn't there. And the distribution of some of these organizations just isn't there anymore. And so you have to see it being pushed online. You have to see people talking about it. You have to see it in news articles. And so, it's one of those things where, yes, is it obnoxious and overstepping and saying the same thing over and over again? You're damn right it is. But the reason why is because not enough people are seeing this. People are just, complaining about this, that nothing really ever happens, when it's like, let's actually look back at the last 13,
it definitely,
14 years.
There's definitely a lot of great things that are happening. And I'm super excited about like the X-tuples and so some of the other, just see like a second wave of.
Ned was always good at that cycle back thing. So where before
that's
people weren't
exactly
doing that,
where
he
I
was
going
always
with it.
great at that. And I always appreciated that about him.
And when we have some more exits, and then we're able to recycle more funding back into reinvesting within the early stage startups. I mean, that's super exciting to me. But it all works together, and this is it's just I just take what I hear from founders, and that's what motivates me to, hey, let me, you do what you have to do, and let me try to help. And if I'm not the guy, then I'm not the guy. But I just want to
spread your wings and fly, if you will.
Well, I just bring it up to just at least let people aware that, hey, we're awesome. If we put some we put some muscle behind it, the sky's the limit.
Well, I mean, even something like the Norva, a nationally recognized top concert venue,
routinely a favorite place for artists to play.
I'm not sure why. I don't know what specific is in there. That's unique. I
I
always enjoyed
think
going there.
it's a sound quality for one,
Oh, okay.
but then in terms of like the backstage green room, I'm like, there's a basketball court upstairs, and
Oh, cool.
yeah, there's
But like little aspects of that. It's just like, what I would say is, and I'm not trying to be on this rant about this, but I think it's true, right? If you truly want to see this area succeed, and you're one of those people that is attending these business events, and all you're doing is sitting in a seat and just kind of just sit in the seat, and just looking, there's a lot more that you can be doing, right? And I wrote this actually in a chapter of a book that I'm writing, and I call it the anonymous user, which is basically just the fly on the wall that's doing nothing. It's like, yes, you support it, but there's a lot more that you can be doing than just being an anonymous user or anonymous person in the crowd. Promote more, share stuff more, tell people more. When you're at a networking event, don't talk about you and the things that you're doing. Talk about some of these other businesses that you just saw. Hey, did you see that, X people just got acquired? Hey, did you see, when you're at the grocery store, ask people, did you go to something in the water? Did you do this? Did you do that? Make your small talk around, make your icebreakers around fun and cool things that you're seeing in the region. That could be a nice slice of the pie to help getting that to the next step, to getting people to recognize that, hey, maybe more things have been happening in the last little bit than they have.
Yep.
Done with my rants.
Well, everyone's invited.
Areas.
Let me know. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your ideas. Everything's open. And
what's something you want to
for the
talk about
future.
that we haven't talked about?
No, I think that we got everything. Yeah, I made sure I shoehorned everything in there that I was looking at, but it's just making sure that everyone knows that they're invited, and no one is too good, and everyone's good enough. So let's make some great things happening, or enable them to be happening.
I'm excited for the ride. Is this where I turn off the episode?
I guess. But for everyone that's watching, listening, thanks for joining.
Subscribe to the show, share this show, let us know who could be a guest. We're always interested in meeting new people.
Well, that brings up a really good point. I mean, now that with Innovate Hampton Roads, we can open up the aperture a little bit more about what are some of the anchored companies, if you will, that we should talk about. I mean, I would like, what businesses has their story not been told enough? Like, it'd be awesome to have EVMS on the show because not enough people perhaps know about the impact that they have. So we're open to new. We can. I would love to hear from the viewers who they would like to have on the show to learn more about in this long form conversation.
And with that, I bid you adieu.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Zach. Thanks.